Hey, welcome back. You're listening to Green Rapids.
I'm wondering about how, since that Ohio train wreck happened and all those toxic chemicals got leached out into the environment,
Right.
Other than the very obvious impacts on pollution and the air and the water, which, as we talked about, basically affects the entire watershed, I'm wondering what effect that's going to have on our weather patterns, if any.
But do you have people ever especially parents and things like that are well, if global warming is a thing, why are we getting winter storms? Why do we have winter?
I don't have people question it in my personal life.
Oh, good.
I
do.
I know it's pretty good in that sense, but I've heard people say oh, when I was growing up, this is how winters were.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I remember this. But so it's kind of we become desensitized when we hear things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden now you're oh, well, I heard an older person say that they remember a few winters where things were like that. And so maybe this is just an ebb and flow, maybe this is not a bad place to be, but we have proof.
Yeah. We have data. If you want to get more in depth with a lot of this information and statistics, you can definitely go to NASA's website or the UN's website.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of really good sources there.
Who in your life though? Or maybe you don't want to say.
I don't want to call anybody out.
Okay. But there are people in your life who just don't believe in.
Yeah.
So question, because we talked about this, is it global warming? Is that the term that's being used, or is it climate change? What are the differences to you in that?
Okay, so from what I've been reading the past couple of weeks, it seems like greenhouse, or global warming, is a result of, these greenhouse gases that we talked about being released into the atmosphere. So, but this global warming is a contributing factor of climate change.
Yeah.
So because the world's getting warmer, we're experiencing climate change, which is obviously, like I said before, right at the top, that upward trend in the averages.
Yeah.
So,
well,
it's a piece of the puzzle.
We know that we are facing hotter summers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that our state will warn us about too.
Yeah.
By the way, make sure you do these things because it's going to be a hot summer. But we aren't taking responsibility for how we're going to give you the power to cool your home at a higher rate, creating more of that problem.
Cringe.
Yeah, it's, and I think it's being, we don't have very much say, and that's really a hard place to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the scariest part, and I don't mean to turn it to that, but it is scary to know that when I want to turn the lights on in this room, I don't have a say in how that power is going to get to me.
Yep.
But I think that when we become complicit with that system, we also it says it's okay. So I would like to have more awareness on why it's an issue, or how we can change things, or who we can hold accountable to make further changes.
Yeah. So I feel for the people, since I guess you don't really get this question, but I get this question a lot when people ask if global warming is happening, why do we still get winters? Why are we getting all these storms? I think it's worth reminding them.
Sorry, it's a weird question.
It's a weird question. But I think it's worth reminding them of your 5th grade earth science class, where we learned that everything in all these systems are interconnected, right? In my geology class, I learned about the hydrosphere, which is every drop of water on this planet contributes to that hydro, the water part of the system, right?
Okay, yep.
And then there's the geosphere, which is everything rock, sand, dirt, right? And then there's I forgot what the air one's called, but basically that air system too. And all these things are not separate from each other, right? They're all playing together in many ways. And then obviously there's the sun, geothermal energy. But so because everything is connected, because global warming is happening, it's and I think I said a little bit about this before, but because those temperatures are getting higher in some places, that might create, for example, droughts in California, which, by the way, is a thing that's happening. Wildfires in California. But then all of that heat like rolls, like, you know, it like affects the way water evaporates. It affects where it rains and where it doesn't rain. So maybe California is not getting rain because it's like the heat is like pushing out all of that moisture. But then like it'll rain extra heavily, like in Florida, for instance, you know?
Right.
So like because it is a connected system, like global warming isn't just warming.
Well, and we are seeing all over the place flooding and hurricanes.
It's like every week.
Wildfires, like those things happening as often as they do. Like, we remember when there used to be like a hurricane and the whole country would know that it was going on, and we would all kind of like pay attention to that and really
and there'd be like hurricane relief efforts, and people would like fly out there to volunteer.
And with the way that we process things now, first of all, we don't even pay attention to them anymore. We don't even pay attention to things like that anymore. But also, like, they're just so frequent.
Yeah, they're like, oh, another one.
Yeah, it's just another one at this point. And, like...
who's keeping track?
Well, who does that impact most?
Frontline communities.
Imagine that.
Wow.
The people who can't leave their homes. The people who don't have the ability to...
And the resources.
The resources. Like, I truly... don't know what I would do if we had a natural disaster in Michigan. Like, I have 2 cats, not enough money saved up. I don't know where I would go or what I would do. Like, I would be a frontline in the frontline community. And I'm only blessed to live in a place that we don't have those occurrences.
I would say that I am only slightly more privileged in that aspect, and that I can always like run to California to my family.
I mean, there are places. Should I text them after this? Hey, by the way,
if a natural disaster strikes in Michigan, I might hit you up.
But
like, hey, Mom, you know how you wanted me to move back in?
No, they're like, can you not? Because Michigan is like a safe haven for our country right now. We have all the water.
Yeah, you know what? To be fair,
we have the only water.
California isn't much better.
Don't go to California, Nancy.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, why did you come here? No.
Like, there's not enough water for you.
You didn't bring any?
You know what I imagine as a future for California? You know how like in the movie Dune, like water was like so precious that when somebody died, they would like remove their body's water and like reuse it for the community.
I've never seen this movie before.
Okay, first off, we need to watch it.
Okay, I clearly do, but also like that was the shocking thing that I was going to hear from you today.
Yeah. Sorry.
Every time Nancy and I talk, she says something where I'm like, oh, that was it. That was the one thing you were going to shock me with today.
It's one per day. I keep them like measured out.
Keep me on my toes.
Always.
We love it. Okay.
Okay, but imagine California drought just getting that bad. All the food is dehydrated.
No. Well, and where do we think we're getting our avocados from?
California. Oh, that's another Mexico. Thing. Okay. I love avocados. So this is like I'll get one every once in a while because they're so
they're
but
like
they're
butter.
So bad. They're so bad.
No, they're so bad. The amount of water it takes it takes years to grow.
It's insane.
An avocado.
Yeah.
And the amount of water it takes.
Yep, avocado orchards are incredibly water intensive.
And they're in places that don't naturally have enough water to support a large crop of that system. And so in places like California, what they'll do is they literally, so I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the water is taken from Northern California and then dispersed to Southern.
We also import it from out of state.
Yeah, they don't have their own water. No. But this is the place where we decide to grow a lot of our food because of the climate there. We're able to have year-round production. And so they're like, well, even though this is a desert, we can put farm here because there's lots of land and no one's living on it, which is just such a backward system because then the people who live in those areas don't have enough water to like live.
Yeah,
they
or at least not enough affordable water.
Well, but there are people who have like reservoirs in their front yards, and people come by and they have to fill them up. And they drink bottled water because that's the only way that they can do that. Like, how are you doing that and then giving avocados and cows more water than people? Like, that's just the reality of it. And that's why we face climate change, because we are taking the natural resources and we're placing them in the wrong, we're putting them in the wrong place.
Yeah, because we're putting them in places that benefit people's wallets.
Exactly.
And by people, I mean big corporations.
It just goes into consumerism.
And not individuals, yep. Mm-hmm.
So we are completely comfortable with stripping this world of resources so that we can have what we want all the time. So that I can have avocados every day of my life in Michigan.
Ooh, I didn't realize
I mean,
how
I'm
wrong
guilty
that
of it,
sounded
though.
until you put it that way.
But, like, I love bananas. Where are those bananas coming from, Nancy? They're not coming from
South
a local
America.
farmer.
Maybe.
And they're being transported here.
And I eat so many bananas.
I love bananas. That is the one thing I have in my house all the time. And, like, as I'm having this conversation, like, again, I think the
What's
reason...
a local equivalent to a banana?
Nothing. A carrot.
I'm
just
okay.
kidding.
The thing is, like, Michigan is, like, famous for apples, right?
Apples,
Apples are, like, all
pumpkins.
fiber, though.
Well, because we are, like,
I like a pumpkin. Pumpkins are nutritious, and they're kind of creamy like a banana. I mean, they might be a slight equivalent.
I don't know which ones are native to Michigan, though, because, like, there are things that will grow in abundance in Michigan. Like, in the summers, you will get a lot of tomatoes. You'll get a lot of beans, squash, zucchini. People grow that all the time.
I grow that stuff.
Yeah. Watermelon.
I love watermelon.
They're close to the ground
Yeah,
versus like...
Yeah, they're like a ground.
So the only thing I would say, like, trees that we can have would be apple trees. And I think that's because the process that apple trees will go through, like the shedding of their leaves, and they're okay with dying, essentially. Like...
Yeah, like, they're very, like, winter hardy, which is important. But, yeah, we need... maybe the solution would be some kind of, like, solar-powered greenhouse where we can have, like, a mini tropical ecosystem to grow bananas from.
Hi. We just happen to know everybody in GRTV right now. It's really funny.
Yeah.
I love community.
Yeah, we just saw our friend Brandon from Wimcat. He's also in the band called Les Creatifs. And also our friend Reginald, who's the director of Seeds of Promise.
Yeah.
We love him.
Yeah. So basically, what you need to do is stop eating. Don't drink water. Don't breathe.
Basically, stop
Don't
existing.
drive your car.
Oh, yeah, because every breath you exhale is carbon dioxide. Look at you, little polluter.
What
Just
else?
kidding.
Wear the same pair of clothes every single day.
Walk everywhere.
But I think that's why people shy away from, one, talking about climate change.
Oh, we're joking, by the way.
No, totally.
Please don't delete yourself.
No, yeah, right. They're like, oh, there it goes.
That's all I needed to hear.
You have to be a vegan if you want to listen to our podcast.
Also a lie.
Yeah, because I love animal products, and it sucks, but, like, I want to be able to do that in a way that doesn't have to be so destructive. And I think that as people who have been formed around this way of life, we should have better options.
Yeah.
And I think that's just what it comes down to. We can't just keep going to stores that promote this lifestyle.
Yeah, because I mean, like, really, there's so many people who would want to raise their own cows, have their own chickens, grow their own food, but because we live in a capitalist society, we just don't have the capacity for that a lot of times.
Well, how are you supposed to do that when you work 40 hours a week at a job that doesn't pay you well enough to get out of the situation you're in?
That can barely afford your ever-increasing rates of electric and utility bills.
And to gain the knowledge. Like, it's no longer common knowledge how to milk a cow and make butter out of that. Like, we don't have that. Like, I know how you could do it, but, like, I would be intimidated by that whole process.
Yep.
And I'm the last person who's gonna milk something. Like, if it came down to living in, like, a barter system, I'd be like, I grow the strawberries. Like, I'm not killing a chicken. I'm not milking a cow. That just... Oh.
I would probably be the egg person. I wouldn't mind having chickens and having eggs. Yeah.
All right. So I got the strawberries. Nancy has the eggs.
Got you on the eggs.
If you guys just want to head on to our website, start typing in what you'll take, and then
time to start an intentional community.
We'll form a community from that.
Yeah. Wait, did you hear about that one couple? I forgot what country it was in, like in Greenland or something. But they enclosed like their entire house in a greenhouse.
Ooh.
Isn't that wild?
That's like next level Earthship.
Yeah.
That would be overwhelming. I would feel a little bit claustrophobic.
I would feel slightly claustrophobic also. And then, I mean, not to nitpick at it, it's a cool idea.
Right.
But
Like,
then,
let me tell you what I would do differently.
But I will. Because then that would be blocking out a lot of native pollinators, a lot of native like flora and fauna.
I'm going to go ahead and guess that they have a flourishing ecosystem. They wouldn't do that if they didn't have, like, they probably have butterflies.
It looked very green in there,
yeah.
so that's likely.
But I also wonder if they're doing that to filter their own air that they breathe every day.
That's possible.
Because I was thinking about, like, even if we lived in a community, again, because of climate change and because of the things that we face, the ground that you're, around might not be a good place to drill water from for too long, depending on how we treat our climate or our planet. The rain that comes down, how safe is that going to be? The animals that
like 20 years from now,
the pollinators.
Rainwater might not even be like a feasible way to like even water my vegetables, which is kind of what I'm doing now.
Well, and even like pesticides, that's going to impact your pollinators. So yeah, maybe the greenhouse thing is not a bad idea.
You're like, what? I'm kind of buying into this.
No, they're like totally. It's like wearing a mask for your whole life.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I would be just okay with like a pocket forest though, and just have like the air in my immediate vicinity be like cleaned by that.
Yeah. Well, and that's why trees are so important. That's why wildlife is so important.
Oh yeah, that's part of like the climate change. Like one of the things that affects climate change is like freaking deforestation.
Because the best and most effective way to filter carbon is through trees. It is actually the only way to, other than man-made.
And composting.
Composting. Well, it's the soil.
Yep.
It's the breaking down of, and then I think water also does recycle some carbon.
Yeah, water does take some carbon. Yeah.
But plants are at the top
trees
of
like
that.
literally like breathe it in and then breathe out oxygen.
They eat it.
They're like reverse humans.
They literally eat it, and so maybe we can talk about that solution because if we do things like plant more trees, it won't take care of the fact that we also need to maybe have our energy come from a different place, but it will offset it. And those are good ways to start because, as we said last week, we are at the point of...
We're past the point of no return.
We're past the point of no return. And so everything that we
guys.
do will contribute to having longevity.
Yeah.
At this point, I think it's just stretching out the amount of time we have left.
Yeah. Ugh, that's scary to think about.
But it won't be in our lifetime. It potentially could if we continue at the rate that we do. But if we make
depending on how long I live too. If I live to be like 90, then I'll definitely start to see some of those things. We're already seeing things like the coral reefs dying and stuff like that. So animals going extinct. Sorry that this episode is a downer, but
climate change is a downer. And if you have kids, you better get an electric car, your next one. No, or something. Do something. Plant trees.
Yeah.
Compost.
It sounds cliche, but
grow
it's
your
a thing.
own food. Teach your kids how to grow food. Because if they don't have that, there's no guarantee that they're going to have a place or that they're going to have the ability to eat what we do every day. There will be no avocados for them.
Yeah. It is a huge problem, and like we actually really need for us to have like significant, like large global or national change. We are going to need financial investments by governments and businesses. So that's also like one of the things that you can do is also just make sure that you talk to representatives about those things, because it's important. And like if they know that that's important to you and they want your vote, guess what? They're gonna listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Make it something that they can't ignore.
Yeah, and tell your friends, tell your friends' friends, tell your kids' friends' parents, tell everybody.
And then shop at places that support the lifestyles that you want to see.
Yeah.
Like going to places like farmers markets. I know it's kind of hard in Michigan because, again, we only have seasons where we can do some of these things.
Yeah, a lot of farmers actually grow greens over the winter in cold frames.
Microgreens.
Microgreens, too.
There are a lot of solutions, but I think when talking about climate change, it becomes so heavy because you have to listen to those facts.
Yep.
You have to understand why you need to make those changes in order to make them. Otherwise, it's just is like a good idea. Not all of our conversations will be like this.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to understand the passion that we have for this.
Yeah.
It's not just the hippie thing or the whatever,
this is like
tree hugger
science
stuff. This is real. This is all of our lives.
It's all of our lives. You'll see it in your increasing utility bills. You'll see it in your weirdly inconsistent seasons here in Michigan. You'll see it in maybe less wildlife when you go out to enjoy Michigan's natural spaces.
Yeah.
So, we care. You care, hopefully. But, yeah. I think that's pretty much all we have today, unless you want to add anything on.
You can find us on Instagram. We'll be uploading on TikTok. We have Facebook. And then you can listen to our podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcast, on SoundCloud. And we'll link it to our website as well. So thanks for listening to Green Rapids.
Peace.
Bye. That was cute.